Okay. So what we're going to do today is look at graphs of the sine, cosine, sine and cosine, and actually do some problems involving this. Okay. I'll kind of do a few up on the board just so you can get the idea of how they work. Okay. But then I'm going to have volunteers come up and do some problems as well because this is a good day to do that sort of have you guys do the work sort of situation. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is just do a quick review. Okay. Of what, kind of what the parts are of this thing, okay? So if I wrote out something like f of x equals k, sorry, plus or minus k, plus or minus a sine of bx minus h, okay? What would each of these pieces represent, or how would I use them to find a certain feature of this sine graph? Okay.
K is the vertical shift.
So K is a vertical shift. Vertical shift. And I wrote K with a plus or minus in front. Just realize it's vertical shift. K is positive, go up. K is negative, go down. Okay. So vertical shift, and it changes. The proper term for it is it changes the sinusoidal axis.
Sinusoidal.
That is the line, if you will, that the wave function waves around. Okay? So I always refer to it instead, I think the term sinusoidal axis, or just the sinusoid, is needlessly complicated. So I usually just call it the baseline, okay? Because baseline, everyone gets put baseline, okay? So, or baseline, okay? So that's the line that the thing does its waviness around, okay? That's what the vertical shift is specifically changing. Okay, good. What next?
Amplitude.
What does that do? What say that next loud?
A,
which does?
amplitude.
Amplitude.
Affects amplitude.
Amplitude. Okay? Amplitude again, what does that measure?
Amplitude measures how high the crests are.
Okay, good. It basically measures how high the crest goes, or how low the trough goes, okay, if you will. You remember those terms from like 6th grade physical science when we're looking at a beach wave, okay? The amplitude is, specifically is the distance between the maximum or minimum and the baseline. Okay, is what it specifically measures. Okay, and so amplitude is actually properly done. It's the absolute value of what A is. Okay, because the amplitude isn't ever going to be negative. Okay, you have negative A up there. All it means is that when you start your graph, you don't go up, you go down. Okay, that's amplitude. Okay, next one. What's the next thing?
The period.
Okay, nice and loud.
The period.
The period. And what is that represented by?
2 pi over b.
2 pi over, is it just b?
Absolute value.
Absolute value of b. Okay? So if I did 2 pi divided by the absolute value of b, that's the period. What does that mean? What's the period?
Wavelength.
Okay, wavelength is good. Okay.
Between like parts.
Repetition.
What about repetition?
Well, how many or how far a distance it has to make it, or
Okay.
how long.
So it's how far it goes before it starts to repeat. That's all it is.
That's
okay. The period is a wavelength, or how far the wave goes before repeating. Okay? And this is kind of interesting. The larger B is, the shorter the wavelength. Okay, so if I make b big, I shorten the distance the wave repeats. If I make b small, or a fraction, I increase the distance. Okay, so you can almost think of it as how quickly, or you almost think of this b as just like, you know, how many times you're telling it to go. So for example, if b were like 5, the wave is going to do its business 5 times faster than a wave that does it if b is just 1. Okay, that sort of thing. Okay.
So wait,
yeah.
if we're given a b, we just multiply it. We don't put it into that first.
Well, this will tell you exactly.
But when we do the calculations,
Yeah.
we just perfect.
Yeah.
Thank
So if I gave you these parts and asked you to recreate the equation,
you. Mhm.
yeah, b is multiplied up there.
Oh.
But if I'm asking what's the actual
Yeah.
distance it takes, you would use this little formula right there.
Yeah.
Okay? All right. The last thing up here,
The
Horizontal through.
horizontal or phase shift. Okay? What determines that?
Minus h. Dx minus h.
Bx minus h. Okay? So bx minus h, and solving for equals 0, the solution is the phase shift.
You just solve for b, right?
You're solving for x, because b and h will actually be numbers.
Okay.
Okay, so like b might be 2 and h might be like 3 pi. Okay, x, and you're solving for x then. Okay, it's the phase shift. And what's the phase shift actually?
It's just the wave
Yeah.
shifting.
It's just the wave shifting to the left or right. And really what you're actually finding here when you solve this, you're finding the x-coordinate of where the wave is going to start. Okay, so the solution is the phase shift. It's the x-coordinate where the wave starts. Okay? That's all it is. Okay, that's the phase shift. And yes, it's basically moving the wave left or right. Moving wave left dash right. Okay? Everyone got that?
Yes, sir.
Alright, cool. Okay. Let's take a look at an actual example one and work it all out. See what we get. See what we get. So let's look at this will be number 56 from the homework actually. Okay. So or 56. Now actually this wasn't assigned for the homework, but it's in the problem set. Okay. The odds are the ones you had to do. This is the even one. Even problem. We have y is equal to 3 cosine of pi over 2x, okay, plus pi over 2, is it minus 3, okay? And what we want to do is we want to graph this thing by hand, okay? So, well, first thing we ought to do, whenever we get this and we have told to graph by hand, go ahead and list out what all the pieces are, because those pieces help us graph this thing out, okay? So, first easiest piece to find is what?
Amplitude.
You can say amplitude or vertical shift, they're both super easy to find. What's my amplitude going to be?
3.
Amplitude is 3. And what's my vertical shift? Negative 3. So the sinusoidal axis then is y equals negative 3. Okay, we've taken the entire thing, moved it down 3 spaces. Okay. Next, we want to figure out what the period is. That tells us how quickly it repeats. We also want to figure out what the phase shift is. Let's go ahead and fill both those in. Okay. So my period is going to be what?
Pi.
So what's it normally? It's 2 pi over b, right?
So
What's b up here?
Pi over 2.
Pi over 2. So
2
this
pi
is going to
over
be 2 pi divided by pi over 2,
which is 4.
which is just going to be 4. The pi's would cancel, and the 2 would come upstairs as a 4. So this thing will repeat in a distance of 4 units, basically. Okay? Last one is phase shift. Okay? How would I find how would I find phase shift? Sorry.
Set that whole thing equal to
Set the whole thing equal to 0. So it's pi over 2x plus pi over 2 equals 0. We solve this. So what's x going to be then? Negative 1. Okay? So dividing both sides by pi over 2. Okay? So I would end up with negative 1. So that means the thing starts at negative 1 instead of starting at 0. Okay? That's all that tells you. If I've shifted things back to negative 1. Okay? From all this now, I can actually do a good graph of this function here. What I'm going to do first, of course, just draw my axes out. It's easiest to start with, actually, let me fix these axes. We want a very large negative y section. Why would that be the case? Because they're going down negative 3, and my amplitude is 3 on top of that. Okay? I'm going to start by putting the vertical shift on here first. Okay? Sinusoidal axis. So I'll go ahead and put a dotted line for it. Okay? Because it makes it, it's nice to see where that actually is. Okay? So that's y equals negative 3. That's the sinusoidal axis, or baseline. Okay? My amplitude is 3. So that means the highest points are going to occur 3 up from that axis, and the lowest 3 down from that axis. Okay? So it's also good to go ahead and mark where those are. Okay? You don't necessarily need to make, I'm doing it with a line from the graph up here. You don't have to actually put those as lines. Okay? It just makes life a little easier to see. Okay? Especially when you're doing repeating wave after the fact, because you know you're not going to go above those lines, basically. Okay? Good. Now, before I delve in, I know my period is 4 and my phase shift is negative 1. So negative 1 marks where this thing begins. So I'm going to come over here to where x is negative 1. Okay? And this thing's the cosine. So does the cosine start on the baseline, or does it start at... where does the cosine start?
Cosine starts on the x-axis.
No, it starts on the maximum.
Yeah.
It starts at the maximum or minimum. This is a positive cosine, so it starts at its maximum. Okay? If there was a minus out in front of that 3, it started at its minimum. Okay? So my first point will be right there. Okay? This is where my starting point is. So go ahead and make it do it. Okay? So now it takes a distance of 4 to repeat. Okay? So it's going to do one full cycle, okay, in 4 spaces. So I start at negative 1. So what's 4 spaces away from negative 1 in that direction? 3. Okay? There's 1, 2, 3. So that's where the thing repeats again. Okay? Now, at this point here, okay, to kind of fill in the rest of the graph, what you want to do is basically, the easiest thing to do is, there's lots of different ways to do this. The way I always find to do this, though, is say, okay, the next important pieces happen halfway between, okay, and then at the quarter marks, okay? So the halfway mark between these 2 points here is going to be where the minimum is. So what's halfway between minus, what's between 3 and minus, what's halfway between?
3 and minus
Okay.
1.
It would be 1. Okay? So I have a minimal right down there. Okay? And then at the quarter marks is where I'm going to have my next one. So at the 1/4 mark and the 3/4 marks. And for the cosine, that's where it's going to hit the baseline. So where's my 1/4 mark? 0. Okay?
2.
And my 3/4 mark is at
2.
2. Okay? So the thing would do that, and it would actually repeat. I could do multiple cycles of it. This one's actually fairly easy to do multiple cycle, because by the next time it would come down there, come down there, come up there, and hit up there, and like that there, okay? And so you get the nice wave, can't you? So there's your cosine wave. This is the graph of that there. You gotta put the sound effects in. Let's see how well I did.
Oh, I have an idea. Ball. We should have class first.
Anyway, yeah. Anyway, that's a lightsaber. I'm going on Star Wars right now. Okay.
Wow.
Let's take a look at what this thing looks like. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. This is not what it looks like.
Oh,
Graph
wow.
yet.
You can just take it.
This is the
Sick.
test graph.
These are sound waves. Oh, wow.
So it would be 3 cosine
Cosine.
of
Oh, wow.
pi over 2x minus, or plus, right? Plus pi divided by 2. Minus 3.
Yeah. That looks nice.
And look at that.
Shut up. You're.
There's minus 1 where it starts. Okay? It touches goes back to, it repeats at minus 3. Okay? Down here it has a minimum at 1 minus 6, just like my graph did. Okay? And it returns to the baseline at minus 3 at 0, and at this location here, if I can, at 2. Okay? So, my graph, okay, is basically the same as the one that you gave. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Marked up.
They match.
Alright. So, we did a pretty good job, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good job.
You're talking about the components of like sound waves,
Uh-huh.
like similar. The difference between like bass and treble and stuff like that. Like how do you change that?
Well, can we talk about that?
Yeah.
Oh.
Can you explain it?
Yeah. Well, bass,
You can't read it now.
bass is basically your increasing wavelength. So the longer the wavelength is, the more the bass is. So a really long wavelength is bass. Okay. So a high wavelength increases in pitch, and the opposite of bass is what? Is that treble?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So the shorter the wavelength is, the higher the treble. Okay. And so that's what those things are. Okay. Yeah. Volume is the amplitude. You need to synchronize a wave sound up. So if I have like 2 different instruments playing and I want to like synchronize them on a track that's moving it left or right, or moving it up and down. Okay, that's what all those do. Okay, there's some other like things as well. Okay, but there you have it. Okay, so that's how you do one of these. Let's get you guys to do some of these though. Okay. Can I have a volunteer? Shh, guys, stop. Okay.
I'm just being supportive.
I know you're being, but you're also giving me a headache. Okay. Remember, I was screamed at most of last night, so.
You were what?
Screamed at most of last night by a baby who did
Oh,
not
yeah,
want
okay.
to sleep.
Don't let that baby tell you.
Okay.
Don't let that baby tell you what to do.
So do babies start eating like baby food rather than formula or
About 6 months.
6 months?
Yeah, you can. 6 months is when you want to start weaning. Start the weaning process. You can give them solid food as early as 4 months. Basically, once they have teeth,
Yeah.
they definitely should be eating food and not drinking milk.
Right.
Okay. Alright. Can I get a volunteer to do this one right here? Okay, this will be my first one. I volunteer to do this one right here.
So the y, it goes down -3 each time, or?
Nope, not necessarily.
But amplitude is 2.
Okay,
Close, buddy.
alright, and then we'll do one more here for volunteer for. Okay,
Instead of T at the end.
T, yeah, if it helps, let's make it X. We don't have to have it.
Ah, okay.
Nah, it's pretty good.
Alright, volunteers? Okay, you go ahead and take one. You take one. One more volunteer.
That last one's the hardest one.
Actually, I would say the middle one's the hardest one.
What is first?
I volunteered Mikey Davenport as tribute.
That's tribute.
This is not what it is.
Alright, don't make me pick. Hate picking.
Yeah, well, I was.
We hated to.
Not a single one of you wants to try this one out.
I'll come and crush it up there.
Alright, thank you, Charles.
Yeah, dude.
I'm just that type of guy.
Show the
I'm a
games.
risk taker.
Show the games.
In fact, Charles, you can use the fancy board.
That's not fair.
Alright, well, if you would have said that.
If you want to, you can also use the board.
Wow, wow.
Okay,
Dang.
and wave hi to Adam.
Ripped.
Okay, wait, what am I supposed to be doing?
You're gonna graph
You gotta do
number 3 up there. So 2/3
Nah,
cosine.
Dave, leave your
That's
sleeves rolled up.
The house that needs built. Nice, bro.
Ah,
Yeah, I can't
I'm
read
just
your,
laying out.
It's never red, dude.
can't read your handwriting.
Ready for the blood of your enemies.
Alright.
Do I have face strips?
You got it. You just
Trying to
jump
grab it.
So-
Oh, he did it.
No,
first thing you ought to do,
just dive
everybody, no, don't dive in, is list all the pieces. What's the amplitude gonna be?
2/3.
I need to get
So
bring in
wrong.
my notes.
Okay, grab your notes.
No, that's so
It's not
right.
It
okay.
is 2/3. Amplitude is 2/3.
Oh!
Ugh.
No relationships.
That was not me.
It's really weird.
That's okay, Peter.
Vertical shift.
I'm gonna
Is there
do
one?
There's
that.
no vertical shift.
No vertical shift, so it starts on the
Wait, what?
x-axis.
What are you gonna do?
Just go back on.
Okay.
Period is.
Is that like a verb that you made up?
No, it's
Still all max.
So, let's write that.
How'd you get period
It's a real
2
word.
pi for that last one over?
Okay,
Urban
so the
dictionary.
period follows a formula. The formula for period for the sine cosine is 2 pi divided by b.
Okay.
Okay. B in this case is going to be 1/2. So it's 2 pi over 1/2, which is equal to?
What'd you say? What do you say?
4 5.
Phase shift equals pi over 2. Is that always this, the b plus pi over 2?
Yeah, you're going to set x.
It would be x over 2 plus pi over 2
Oh, what for?
for phase shift.
No, it's going to be x over 2 minus pi over 4 equals 0. And you're going to solve for x. No, you don't have to put the minus like that.
Well, it's gonna be plus, but.
Well, no. It's just literally, you take the thing in the parentheses and set it equal to 0.
Okay.
Okay?
Alright, what does it mean?
Alright, Carl.
So, you only need the
Take
one
this
minus.
Two last night.
How am I supposed to get that?
Okay, well, move the pi over 4 over, so it's x over 2 equals pi over 4.
And cross multiply.
It's so fake.
I want to learn like talk like that.
All you have to do is multiply both sides by 2.
People can actually do that.
Yeah, but not him. He's an actor. I think he's also.
2 pi over 4, x equals 2 pi over 4. Yeah.
Well, that's because of
Okay.
skill.
So you got all your pieces
I
down.
did that last
Okay.
night.
So now we can go ahead and start graphing this thing.
Can you clear it all at once? Or
Oh.
just do this?
Oh, don't erase all that because you want that.
Okay.
Go ahead and just scroll down and just draw your graph down here. Because your period is pi, is 4 pi, okay? It'd be easiest just to mark everything off at every pi. That way would make it easiest. Let's see, where do you start? Pi over 2. Mark, yeah, so just mark things. When you mark your x-axis, makes it like pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, etc. Okay?
So pi over 2, pi over 3 or 2 pi?
It'd be just pi,
Okay.
because it'd be 2 pi over 2,
It's
3 pi over 2,
Okay.
then 2 pi. Then you keep on going because it's going to take, so do like 5 pi over 2, then 3 pi,
Be strong.
then 7 pi over 2,
And be able to take the punch.
Do that problem.
They
then
don't do that.
4 pi,
All you know is to shoot a gun.
and then finally 9 pi over 2. That's all you need for one full cycle of this section. Okay. There you go. All right.
Yeah, these.
Thanks, Ron.
That's just how I like it.
Alright, so it repeats every 4 spaces.
Bring the view.
For 4 pi, right?
4 pi.
So it starts at pi over 2, so where's it going to end?
2 pi.
Nope. Pi over 2 plus 4 pi is?
5 pi. 5 pi over 2.
No. Pi over 2
They do something.
8
Plus-
pi.
over 2 plus pi over 2 is?
Pi over 2 plus 4 pi. You have to put it over. So it's 8 pi, 9 pi.
Yeah, that's why I had to end at 9 pi over 2. So it's going to end there, start at pi over 2.
Okay.
Okay. Now, before I start graphing this thing, where's the sinusoidal axis? It's at it's at 0, so you're good there.
Yeah.
How high up does it go? What was the vertical shift? Do you remember? You can scroll up. Maybe.
There's no vertical shift.
No vertical shift. Okay, good. Amplitude though is 2/3, right?
Yeah.
So the highest point it's going to reach is 2/3, and the lowest point is negative 2/3. So go ahead and draw like 2 little dashed lines to those.
It's terrible, Peter.
So
It would just be like not even a full
give yourself plenty of space. We can make ourselves. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
19.
Yeah.
All right. Now we can start filling in points. So
It's only
start at pi over 2. Is this sine or cosine?
for some people.
Cosine.
Cosine. So do we start at the baseline or the maximum or minimum?
Baseline.
For cosine?
Be a freshman
No.
Okay.
next year.
And it's positive. So we'll start at
She is.
pi over 2, 2/3. That'll be our first point.
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
Yeah, she is.
and we end at that same location, but over by 9 pi over 2.
I'm not gonna deny her the ability.
Okay.
Because it's not going up and down. Is it going
It's
to
gonna go
Think about it this way.
like that.
Alright.
Okay.
So,
So, halfway between pi over 2 and 9 pi over 2 is where it bottoms, it hits its minimum in this case. So it's halfway between those two.
So you just go from here and then what? Go like that?
Well, like halfway between, yeah. So it'd be at 5 pi over 2. Okay? Alright, and then at the quarter marks is where it returns to where it goes to the baseline. So the locations I would mark,
Wrong, actually.
let's not draw that line yet. Okay, we got the one right there,
Stuff on there.
the one right there,
Like a little
the halfway
amplitude,
mark,
if that
right down
changes
there,
anything.
and
It
then
does.
it
The
touches
thing I changed then was that it started downwards
what
instead of
there.
upwards.
That's right, that's.
that one right there.
Yeah, do
So the
that.
thing would come
How
in
did you figure out the
very slowly
Well, I know that
Touch.
change of like
and come back up.
He has to change the
Like that.
base formula.
It's so slight I can't even draw it
Wait,
correctly.
look.
But that's what it would basically look like. Okay?
Alright.
Alright, got a better feeling how this works?
I think so.
Alright, good.
It's-
Alright. Let's see what
Carl used.
Carl and George did. Okay.
I'll split it.
So Carl and George here. So let's see Carl's. Okay. So
I had a negative amplitude.
you had a negative amplitude, so you start going down first. You were the sine. Okay. Let's see. Amplitude was 2. Good. Was there a phase shift? Nope. Okay. Period was 2 pi over 2 pi over 3, which just makes it 3. Okay. And there's no phase shift. So yeah, that one was, and so that's a perfect graph. There we go. All right. Excellent. Beautiful. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
Okay. And let's take a look at George's here. Okay. We had a phase shift of vertical shift of -4, so it goes down by 4 first. A amplitude of 5, so there's the up and the down there. Whoop, let's actually get this. There we go. Up and the down. Okay. Pi over 12, so its period is 24 when you work it out. Huge period. Okay. And then you start by going down because it's negative. So go down. Oh, actually, you got this thing. Needs to flip it upside down.
It's cosine, so it starts at a maximum.
But it's -4. So is that minus sign?
No.
Oh wait, no, I'm getting confused. You're absolutely correct. My bad. I was reading this wrong. Amplitude is +5, so yes, starts at a maximum. So it looks like that. So that's a perfect graph of it. Good job. All right. Excellent. Okay. All good. So everyone has a better idea of how these graphing works. Okay. We will on Monday pick back up with our with new graphic types. I think I have to make an adjustment to the homework assignment so they mesh up. I will go ahead and do that. Okay. All right, everybody.
Thank you.